Hello everyone and welcome back to Witchinary. If you have yet to subscribe to this channel, then please do so because we are getting crafty, and today I wanted to bring to you my creations using the My Monthly Hero Art Kit for January 2019. Now this card kit is very cute. It is Valentine's Day themed. It brings all of these cute little cardstocks so you can make some card panels or some card bases out of. It brings these stickers that you can use in your card making or to seal your vellum envelopes with. It also brings a pink glimmer lacquer pen, but of course the real star of the show is the actual stamp set. It's very much like a shabby chic flower shop theme, and I was very into it because I can see myself reaching for this kit again for Mother's Day or even maybe for when I feel more springy. So yeah. To start, I took a piece of Strathmore watercolor paper and I'm just going to make a few panels out of it so I can stamp down all of my images onto it. To do so, I pulled out my mini Misti and I'm going to be inking up all of my images using some Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. Now, I'm going to apologize to you guys ahead of time because I took forever uploading this video, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that I couldn't figure out my coloring. A lot of what I was seeing on social media all looked the same, so at first I really wanted to do like a rainbow sort of theme using Annecy, France as my inspiration, and when that wasn't coming together I got very frustrated. And in my frustration I was just kind of like, who likes Valentine's Day anyway? Like, my sister definitely doesn't, and if I send her a pink card she will have my head on a stick, so what am I doing? I decided at that moment that I was gonna do like an Edgar Allan Poe, Annabelle Lee sort of thing, so I just went dark. I wanted to color all of my flowers in like burgundies, and I wanted to do a lot of my aesthetics in my grays and whatnot, so I pulled out a combination of my Zig Clean Color Real brush markers as well as my Jane Davenport watercolor brights set, and I just kind of went for it. I colored everything in purples, navy blues, reds, and burgundies, and would you believe it, guys? Even though the set is basically colored in some really gothic sort of colors, the design of it is so whimsical that you would never tell that that's what I was going for. From my stash, I pulled out a piece of fog cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and I cut it to be A2 sized, but like just slightly smaller than that, so that way you can see a border of whatever card base I actually put it on. And for this card, my idea was just kind of like make a 3x3 grid of all of your flowers in these awesome crates that I had already die cut and colored. So that's kind of what I was going for, and I got my idea from the March 2017 Simon Says Stamp kit. That kit was also a shabby chic sort of theme with this paper pack that was like a farmer's market sort of thing, and there were these awesome tags in there that a lot of people did this sort of like technique with, but I kind of wanted to do that only with the flowers in this kit, so yeah. To actually adhere this down to my card panel, I took out my foam squares because this is Strathmore watercolor paper. It was only going to be adhered down to my panel either using foam squares, super tape, or multimedia matte glue. And I decided on foam squares because you guys know I'm a dimension queen. I really love adding dimension to my cards. Flat cards are a huge challenge for me, so that's kind of what I went with. I also take my tape runner to just make sure that like the bottom of my flowers was to some degree adhered down to the actual crates they were on, because I didn't really want them moving or getting unstuck. So I go ahead and I do this for all of my flowers, and then I pull out my mini Misti again because I want to actually stamp down one of the sentiments. One of the cooler things about this kit that I noticed is that the actual calligraphy for it kind of curves, so it was really easy for me to kind of just put this in between my flowers. So I go ahead and I stamp down my sentiment, says you're lovely, with Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, and then I go ahead and adhere this down to my card panel of Neenah Solar White cardstock. I was looking through my stash to see if I could find any of those moonlight sequins from last kit that came, you know, the last sequins that came in the kits, but I couldn't find them, so I go ahead and I pull out some Simon Says Stamp Moonshine sequins because they were literally right next to me, and I just add them to the front for some interest. I also stamped down Happy Valentine's Day on the inside of this card, and that finished off this card. For my next card, I was kind of struggling a little bit because this is where I was like, okay, I don't want it to look too similar. So I was brainstorming and I laid out all of the actual die cutting and coloring that I did for my, you know, for my stamping and whatnot. And then I was like, you know what, we're just gonna go for it. We have, at least the coloring is a little bit different. It's a different idea. So we're just gonna make one of those cards. Besides, they're really pretty, so let's go for it. I pulled out a piece of craft paper from my stash and I traced the window of the actual flower shop so that way I can take these wine strips or the wine cardstock strips that I had lying around, and I wanted to make shelves from them. So I just adhered them down using my tape runner, and then I made some shelves, and then I started like kind of raising up my little crates and whatnot on top of these shelves. I also completely forgot there was like a little cup, like a terracotta pot that came in this kit that would have really been nice for some of these arrangements, but I forgot it existed, so I never stamped it down. You know, when inspiration strikes. Anyway, I raised up my flower shop using some foam squares, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to raise a few things on foam squares, and then I'm going to adhere some down using some super tape. Once I was done adhering down my bike, and I'm right now just trimming off some excess and also adding another foam square to just stabilize it, I am going to add just a few more embellishments because I was really like, oh my god, I'm not getting any more ideas. Let me just, you know, play with what I have. I go ahead and I finagle my little balloons onto the top corner of this panel, and once I was done doing that, I was like, you know what, this is still missing something. My last sort of card had some interest, so I pulled out a piece of vellum from my stash, and this is where I was just kind of regretting every life choice I've ever made because I really wanted to actually use some white embossing powder to emboss I love you across the front, but because I had already adhered this down with some super tape, I was gonna like mess up my panel if I ripped it off. So I just go ahead and I take my mini Misti and I ink it up with my intense black ink, and I just stamp it down to my actual vellum, and I pressed really hard because it wasn't really, you know, stamping, and I blasted it with my heat tool to dry it so it wouldn't smudge. And then I of course just adhere this panel down to my card base, and that finished off this card. For my last card, I wanted to use the rest of the actual die cuts that I had made. So to do that, I decided on making a long card. So I had just gone to paper presentation and I had seen this beautiful lily paper. It's like a lavender sort of paper, and I had made a card panel out of it. My actual card base is made from Neenah Solar White cardstock, and it measures to be around 3 by 7/8 of an inch by 9 inches, and my panel is slightly smaller than that. I decided to make little windows from my actual, or for my flower shops using some Paper Source black paper. And after I was done doing that, I wanted to make a few shelves, so I took some of the fog cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and I just made some strips, and I cut them where like I knew they'd still be covered by some of the walls of the flower shop. For my first actual flower shop, I wanted to make sure it lied flat and didn't have any dimensions, so I used a combination of super tape and my actual tape runner to make sure everything was flat. I wanted all of my dimension to basically be completely in the middle and the bottom of the card in the event where the recipient wanted to stand it up. It wouldn't just like fall over because it would be stabilized at those points. Anyway, once that was done, I go ahead and I do the same thing for the second panel, but instead of just, you know, doing what I did with the first card where I just adhered the window down first and then I raised up the actual flower shop, I actually adhered the backdrop and then I raised up the entire flower shop on itself. So for this, I was just kind of like, all right, we're gonna go to town with these embellishments. We're gonna make this the most floral looking thing. And honestly, I think I probably could have gone a little bit darker with the background. I was just kind of, I don't know, I feel like I was having a Sweeney Todd moment when like, Mrs. Lovett is like completely fantasizing about Sweeney Todd and like everything gets brighter suddenly. So I just decided to go with something that's a little bit more lavender and a little bit lighter. So, but still, this has a little bit of like an eerie feel. I mean, I don't know many flower shops that are just black and white and gray. But anyway, I'm just playing around with dimension. I'm tucking away some flowers. I'm trying to sneak in flowers wherever I can. I go ahead and I raise up this little bike just a little bit so I can adhere the top down to my flower shop but still raise the bottom up. And I am just gonna do this continuously until I can literally fit as many flowers as I possibly humanly can onto this panel without it like looking too weird. It did get very busy. I probably could have done a little bit better about separating my flower shops, maybe trimming one off instead of trying to fit them both. But yeah, again, I didn't really want to waste anything, so that's kind of what I went for. I'm using some super tape right now to adhere my actual flowers down to this card panel because I didn't want to give too much dimension where I didn't have to. I'm going to use my tape runner to just adhere my card panel down to my card base because, you know, I know that this would adhere down to each other, but I wanted to be generous just because this is very heavy and this is a long card. And believe it or not, this card took me a very long time. Oftentimes long cards do, especially when you're putting this much thought into them. So anyway, once that was done, I felt like I still wanted to add a little bit of interest, so I took some of the same Moonshine sequins from Simon Says Stamp and I used some glossy accents to actually adhere down my sequins onto the corners, and I felt like this really tied in together my my first card with this long card, but it still gave me the same flower look as my second card, so they're kind of like part of the same collection, and I was very happy with that. I also felt like the card wasn't busy enough, and I know someone right now is like smacking their head, so I decided to add the sentiment lovely down to the lower hand side. Well guys, that wraps up this card and that wraps up this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it and I hope that you guys have a great day. Take care.